Bronx Drill blew up in 2020 and brought a new energy to New York City. But the movement also brought a ton of chaos. There was all kinds of beef between all the groups involved in the scene. There were kids crashing out left and right, and others losing their lives as a result. Alliances fell apart like never seen before. Friends turned into enemies, and everything was documented in the music and on social media for the world to see. This new movement in the city produced numerous figures who gained fame from their music, and the past 4 years have led these rappers to all different types of places. Some crashed out and threw their careers away. Several lost their lives. Some faded to irrelevance. And others found themselves in crazy situations, facing allegations ranging all the way from snitching to robbing fans. So in this video, we'll take a look at some of the biggest faces in Bronx Drill and where they are now. Spaz Drilly was one of the early pioneers of Bronx Drill, and early bangers like Bunny Hop and Op Spotter put him on the map. But his career was cut short early when he was locked up in late 2020 for a body, and 4 years later, in the present day, he's still sitting waiting to be sentenced. RPT was also very early on in the scene, and this group included rappers like D Thang, Dot, Bando, Six Shots, T-Mac, and Ddot. They lost a couple members to jail early, but D Thang emerged as the breakout star. He, Bando, and Dot were doing numbers throughout 2021, especially the end of the year when they dropped Talk Facts. However, one by one, they all went down for various charges. And in 2022, the whole RPT gang was indicted on conspiracy charges. So through 2022 and 2023, they had to sit behind bars. In early 2024, Dthang was finally released. By this point, Bronx Drill was declining, and the fans were waiting for someone to save it. Dthang began dropping consistently, pulling millions of views on each video and literally carrying the movement, as well as giving a boost to other YG's rappers like Yus G's and Sha G's through collabs. However, despite his strong comeback from January to the present day, even Dthang has seen a slight decline in his views. He's still leading the movement, but the movement on the whole is on the decline. Sha G's was around through most of the Bronx Drill wave. He started rapping around 2020. Yus G started rapping in 2021, but took off quickly with songs like Warzone and Deadlocks in late 2022. After dropping New Sha, he started going crazy and blowing up like never before. Shortly after this, in 2023, Yus G's and Sha G's would start beefing and dissing each other on songs. But in 2024, after Dthang came home, they were able to settle their differences, and everybody came together on a song titled My Town. Despite this fact, through 2024, like most other Bronx Drill rappers, they both saw their views decline. Drilly was one of the biggest rappers on the YG's and Drill side, and he also blew up in 2021 but got locked up in 2022. In 2024, he was finally sentenced with 5 years. However, given the fact that he had already sat for 2, fans were hopeful that he'd be out soon. On the OG's side, Sha EK and B-Lovee were some of the early pioneers of Bronx Drill. B-Lovee took off with K-Flock and Dougie B in 2021, but after this year, things began to decline for him. He attempted to make more mainstream R&B influenced music, however saw limited success. Sha EK hit his peak in 2022 with songs like Face of the What and Touch the Ground. However, after this point, things would begin to decline for him. He found himself getting into constant and petty beefs with people all over New York. Despite seeing tons of success rapping alongside rappers from the OY group in Harlem and even jacking the name OYOGs for their alliance, he ended up falling out with them and dissing them. In songs, along with the growing list of other people he had problems with, despite all this beef and dissing, his views began dropping and his name started to fade from relevance on the scene. In the present day, both he and B-Lovee aren't completely irrelevant, but they're far from their prime. But recently, Sha EK, in connection with a shooting that occurred in July 2024, was taken into custody and is now facing 23 charges, including multiple attempted murder charges. The shooting took place in the Mott Haven area of the Bronx, where 3 individuals were hospitalized. According to authorities, the incident happened near a public housing complex called Patterson Houses, and Sha EK is accused of being involved in the altercation. Although the shooting occurred last summer, law enforcement only took the 21-year-old artist into custody in the past few months. Now, Sha EK is facing a series of serious charges, including 3 counts of attempted murder, assault, possession of a firearm, and conspiracy to commit murder. Out of everybody in this drill movement, DOA rappers have definitely seen the biggest decline as a collective. K-Flock was the face of the entire city in 2021, but caught a body at the peak of his career and threw everything away. While in jail, he was named in a DOA indictment and found himself suddenly dealing with federal charges. He was facing the chair, but that was taken off the table, and now he's facing life. However, things still aren't looking good for him, and there isn't much hope. Dougie B was right beside K-Flock through everything in 2021, but after K was locked up, things started spiraling for him. He dropped less and less consistently and found himself going in and out of jail. He started dating Asian doll and then fell out with some of his homies, and the whole time he was off the perks heavy. In May of 2024, K-Flock's mom revealed that he had checked into rehab, but just a month later, Dougie was back in the news after a 16-year-old fan accused Dougie of robbing him for a band. Dougie denied the accusations, but the video of him eyeing the money definitely makes it look like there was a good chance he actually did it. C was another DOA rapper from 186, a hood 1 block away from K-Flock and Dougie B's home. He was also taking off in 2021 and had several big songs doing numbers, but unfortunately in early 2022, he met a tragic end. C-Blu and Set the Trend came up together in 2021, but after this breakout year, they watched their numbers decline and then began beefing. This beef ended up escalating into a situation where Seti threw a brick at C-Blu's car. They ended up squashing things, but then a couple of months later, alleged paperwork came out on Seti. Most of DOA turned their back on him, and once again, he and C-Blu weren't cool anymore. Then in June, C-Blu's editor dropped a video accusing C-Blu of being broke and owing him money. C-Blu denied these allegations, and the two argued about the situation on IG Live. Nas EBK was also a part of this 2021 wave of DOA rappers, but in 2023, he was booked for a body he allegedly caught in Times Square and is still sitting behind bars at the time of this writing. Out of all the DOA rappers, Kenzo Bala was the most consistent. He blew up towards the end of 2021 alongside TG Flocka. He continued dropping and consistently doing numbers into 2023, but eventually even his views began declining. When it comes to rappers from Sugar Hill, they've had mixed results. Ddot Baby was a pioneer as far as the drill movement in Harlem, blowing up with an early song called Ready for War. He continued doing numbers and leading Sugar Hill in the following years, but unfortunately, he met a tragic end in November of 2022. Sugar Hill Keem started blowing up in late 2021 when he dropped Move Look. In early 2022, he was taking over the scene, but in June, he was booked on firearm charges and a year later sentenced to 5 years in prison, where he's sitting currently. DD Osama and Sugar Hill Ddot took off in the second half of 2022, becoming two of the biggest artists on the New York drill scene. Through 2023 and 2024, they've continued to do numbers, still pulling millions of views on a regular basis, but slowly declining in popularity. The Sweepers were the most recent group to jump into the mix of the Bronx and Harlem drill movement. After they exploded onto the scene in January dissing DOA, the OGs, and OY, they had a large amount of excitement around them, especially S.Go. Things were going up, but then they began falling apart. First, J5 was arrested on gun charges, then in August, Nas GPG was booked in connection with an incident where he was allegedly involved in an attempted drill on a gang member, resulting in 2 civilians being hit, one of whom was a 4-year-old. The police issued a warrant for S.Go because they believed he was also involved in the incident, and about a week later, he turned himself in. The Sweepers had a 7-month run from January to August before things ended for them as a whole. The Bronx and Harlem drill movement unfolded as expected, similar to Chicago and Brooklyn, with real violence driving the movement. This conflict consistently leads to the same outcomes. Some lose their lives, some go to prison, and some make it out. Eventually, the fans become bored and move on to something new. That's the end of today's video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know who you want a video on next.